Milf to Bimbo 4-pack, books 9 to 12, Breeding Erotica, Bimbo Erotica Bimbofication Erotica, Anal Sex Erotica Collection. Written by Tori Westwood. Narrated by Sallybeth. Royally Screwed, Milf to Bimbo 9. "Ooh, there he is!" cried Margot, shaking her Union Jack flag as she sat in the lounge of her sleepy village cottage. Nothing much ever happened in Toddingham, and the King's coronation was big news. Margot had taken a break from the outside street parties to return indoors and watch the ceremony on the television. It was a once-in-a-lifetime event, so she kept telling Cooper. He'd only come inside from the street party because of the promise of cake and because Margot was quite the dish, even if she was over twice his age. "You'll never see anything like this again," Margot said to Cooper, shaking her head at him as he remained buried in his phone. "He's old, Mrs. Bennet. I suspect I might get the chance again." Margot pursed her lips. He was right, of course, but Margot was too proud to admit it. She'd make him wait a bit longer for cake. "It's history," she said. "That's all I'm saying." She turned back to the television, and Cooper spotted the glint in her eye as she caught sight of the King. She clasped her hands together and took a deep breath. While Cooper couldn't quite understand it, he was happy to see Mrs. Bennet happy. Since her divorce, she'd lost a lot of her confidence, and it hadn't gone unnoticed. Cooper hoped she would find someone else. His friends often described her as a milf, and Cooper could see that now. She seemed more relaxed indoors than she had been amongst the revellers outside. His friends frequently imagined a different kind of Mrs. Bennet, a Mrs. Bennet who would tend to them in very different ways than the slice of carrot cake that Cooper had been promised. Margot stared. The King walked steadily up the aisle, decked on either side by the royal choir who sang angelically. She felt overcome. Some dormant emotions were stirring, and this was the catalyst for their release. She'd kept all of it buttoned down for so long, but she could feel it bubbling. At this point, Cooper was staring at the television too. The event was captivating. Mrs. Bennet was right. It was like nothing he'd ever seen. Were it not for the fact he was watching it on the television, Cooper could have been forgiven for thinking that he'd been transported back to a different time. "Oh, look at her," Margot said, fluttering her lashes, as the tears formed. "She's still so pretty and elegant." Cameron didn't see it, but he was starting to notice things about Mrs. Bennet that he hadn't before. His eyes trailed down off her proud face and settled on her chest. Margot had long been endowed with a large set of breasts, but she'd never once flaunted them. They were sealed away, meant only for the man who had her hand in marriage. It was a fact that Cooper's friends often cursed, but Cooper was glad that she was so reserved. It made her special. Cooper shook the thought from his mind and watched as the King took his seat. The ceremony continued with Cooper drifting in and out of proceedings. Margot barely blinked. She watched the whole thing, listening intently as Charles gave his allegiance to the crown. Cooper had given up on the cake and was thinking about returning back outside. "They're going to put it on his head," Margot said, beaming as the bejewelled crown was finally revealed. "Oh, Cooper, isn't it wonderful, honey?" Cooper sat up and paid attention for this part. He rested his elbows on the inside of his knees and leaned forwards. He could see the joy in Mrs. Bennet's face as he stared at it in profile. She was undeniably beautiful. Her skin was smooth and full of life, and she had an energy that was infectious at times. She let out a whimper and put a hand to her chest. Cooper stared in confusion as she started to squeeze at her breast as she watched the crown settle on the King's head. "It's magical," she hushed. "Mrs. Bennet?" Cooper asked. Margot could barely hear him. She was overcome by the day. She sat mesmerized by the glistening crown jewels, rubbing at her breasts, without realizing how stiff she'd made her nipples. "Mrs. Bennet?" Cooper asked again, and he started to feel a stirring in his pants as he watched his prudish neighbour do something unspeakable. "It's beautiful."
Sample complete. Ready to continue?